Hey, you want to see one of my favorite fighting games ever made?
Transcending history and the world, a tale of souls and swords, eternally retold.
It's still good. This is Soul Calibur 2, the third installment in the Soul Calibur series developed by Project Soul and published by Namco. This game is following up after the previous titles of Soul Blade for the PS1 and Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast. But more important than any of that, it's my favorite fighting game ever made. Yeah, I'll admit, when I was younger, I was going through a bit of a Zelda phase. It'll pass eventually. With the Gamecube being out around this time, my parents spoiled me quite a bit. I was lucky enough to get the launch day edition of the Gamecube with the packed in Zelda Collector's Edition title and a copy of Wind Waker. But little did I know that my obsession would latch on to an entirely different series. One year on my birthday when I was younger, my dad bought me this mysterious looking game, Soul Calibur 2. I never heard of the series before that moment, and I just assumed my dad picked this up simply because Link was on the cover and he thought I was easily manipulated by this. Yeah, he was right. So, like any other kid excited on their birthday, I tore off the plastic, popped that bad boy in, and had my first sexual awakening. Oh yeah, baby, that's the stuff! The intro to this game is absolutely one of my favorites in any game I've played. The way they give each character a chance to shine while giving us a small glimpse into their backstory, accompanied by this super epic arrangement and just badass fight scenes all the way through. It did, and still does, get me hype as hell. From Talon looking hopeful on a windy hill to Nightmare just somberly standing on a decrepit cliffside. And one of the things I love the most about this is they even gave their guest characters a brief moment to appear. When I was a kid and saw Link got an opportunity to shine among the main roster in the intro, chills, dude. Chills. They did not have to go this hard, but boy am I glad they did. Yeah, sure, games like Street Fighter and Tekken were fine at the time, but they all lacked one advantage this game had. They weren't weeby enough. Screw your kicks and punches, give me exaggerated, sexy, and terrifying characters with weapons, and then you have my attention. Seriously though, if you have not played this game before, there's just so many things I could gush about. The characters, the story, the music, it's just all so damn good. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself, so rather than making suggested noises to describe how I feel about this game, let's take a deeper look at it. Oh yeah, and just for my personal preference and to give you a heads up, I'm going to be playing the original GameCube version of this game, so apologies for the muddy quality in advance. I only just found this out recently before I did this review, but apparently in 2013 an HD Online version of this game was announced for PS3, and this totally flew under my radar. Had I known about this version, I would have been all over this, but too late now I guess. So, what's this game's deal? What do these words mean? Well, one of those words I lost long ago, and the others I have no idea what they mean. What the f*** is I? Just as a brief synopsis, the story goes as follows. History tells of a sword created by man long ago called Soul Edge. The sword is said to be a weapon of ultimate power that has been long sought after with anyone who obtains it, using it for their own personal gain. But like anything made by man, the sword is actually evil and consumes souls to make itself stronger. Just like my ex. When Soul Edge was created, mysteriously enough, a second sword called Soul Calibur appeared. Soul Calibur appeared as an opposite counterpart to combat Soul Edge, and they clashed many times throughout history. And despite the repeat of these events happening over and over, no one's put away Soul Edge for good. The basic premise of this game and its characters is everyone is on their own journey in search of Soul Edge for different reasons. Some want to seek it out and destroy it, some want it for themselves in pursuit of power, and even some have been corrupted by it in some way. And as dumb and weeby as it sounds, I always love the idea that this evil artifact serves as the plot for why some characters are good and some characters are evil. I feel it really helped to give some of these characters personality, Not that they really needed a plot to help that, because this roster sticks out more than any other fighting game I've played. Whether or not you played any of the Soul Calibur games, you'd definitely recognize some of these characters if you saw them. There's even a few of them that basically serve as mascots for the series, some because they look cool, others because marketing reasons. But really quick, let's quickly go over some of the characters you'll meet in this game. First up, you have your basic human characters like Keelik, Maxi, and Yoon Sung. I'm lumping them in together because I never really thought these guys were anything special. I mean, Keelik has a stick and Maxi has nunchucks and an Elvis comb over, but nah. Then there's Mitsurugi, the battle-hardened samurai who's always looking for a challenger. He also really cares about your feelings.
Don't cry.
A badass ninja warrior named Taki. Cervantes, who's this really cool evil dual sword-wielding pirate. Probably one of the most iconic characters in the series, a dominatrix-looking character with a sword that can change into a whip named Ivy. Yeah, you know, I'm honestly okay going out like that. How do you feel about that, Nightmare?
My thirst is endless.
One of my personal favorite characters that I use often, a batshit insane clan leader named Yoshimitsu, who says crazy things, pulls off these really insane moves, one of which includes stabbing himself to hurt you. Then there's Valdo. You know, on second thought, I don't want to talk about Valdo. Valdo scares me. And this towering golem-looking character with a giant axe named Astaroth. On top of those are a few side characters that were added to the game. Definitely one of the more unique characters in this game is Necrid. He's an original character made by Todd McFarlane, who's also known as the creator of Spawn. I really dig his design. He's got this giant orb in the center of his chest, he only speaks in grunts, and I just really think he's cool looking. His weapon of choice are these orbs he uses, which acts as a mix between multiple characters' movesets, so if you don't know what you feel like playing, play as Necrid, you'll have pretty much everything. Then there's also these random miscellaneous side characters you can unlock by playing the main story. First there's Assassin, who's an assassin, Berserker, who is basically Astaroth on steroids, and Lizard Man. He's a lizard man. That's it.
Lizard Man, and Lizard Man. Hey, good going, Bill. Nice job, Bill.
But by far the best addition to this game are the guest characters. So if you weren't aware, Soul Calibur 2 is made for the three main consoles at this time, Xbox, PS2, and Gamecube. Something really cool the developers for this game opted for is to have a special guest character that represents that console. Xbox had Spawn, PlayStation had Heihachi from the Tekken series. So a really quick fun fact about the PlayStation 2 version is that they almost got Cloud to guest star in this game in Heihachi's place. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, they couldn't make it happen, so they opted for Heihachi instead. I think Cloud would have been a really cool addition to have in these games, just tearing stuff up with his Buster Sword and using his powers. It would have been awesome, but hey, I'll take anything. And for the final console, as you guys know, for my version on the GameCube I had, they chose Link. The fact that they added Link in the first place should be enough, but the level of attention and care given to his character made me respect Namco so much for this choice. It would have been easy to take the lazy route and just throw Link in and call it a day, but they went above and beyond for his character. They gave him a moveset that completely fits him, complete with bombs, a bow and arrow, and his iconic boomerang. They orchestrated the main Zelda theme for one of the levels, and even the treasure chest jingle plays after winning a match.
Trust your noble soul in your sword. Battle 1. Fight.
On top of that, the weapons you can unlock and buy in story mode are straight out of the Zelda games. You can unlock things like the Magic Sword, the Megaton Hammer from Ocarina of Time, and even the Big Goron Sword, which is one of his best weapons. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. It's honestly a really refreshing sight to see one company taking care of another's IP with such care. I really think my only complaint would be the voice they gave Link. It's weird.
Versus Mitsurugi.
Hey, Link? You need a glass of water there? You good, buddy? Oh yeah, one little fun thing you can do in this game is when they show your character just before the round starts, if you press one of the buttons on the controller, your character will say something. So the majority of my playthrough just sounded like this. When you get into the menus, there's quite a few modes to choose from, but the bulk of this game's hours will be spent in what's called Weapon Master mode. This basically serves as the game's main story and is honestly a good way to get familiarized with how the game plays. You progress the story by completing objectives and challenges on a map that acts as this game's overworld. While it may just seem like you're just doing fights back to back, the story mode really isn't all that long and they make the combat fun by throwing in ridiculous and sometimes unfair stipulations. Sometimes it's just a straightforward fight, but other times you can get things like harsh weather conditions, like the wind blowing you and your opponent off the stage, so you have to knock them off first. Or one of my personal favorite types of matches, the floor is explosions, and the first one to touch the floor blows up and dies.
Perfect.
Then there are other random things like your enemies' health increasing over time, or they might be invisible, or you might have to go up against 5 in one round. There's also these little mini dungeons you can navigate through as well that are pretty fun. They range from booby traps to oops all berserker. Another nice incentive they added for the players to make story mode more fun is you gain money for every objective you complete. The money you get can be spent in the shop where you can unlock things like new weapons for characters, new costumes, extra modes, and even concept art. And even just by playing through the story mode, you can unlock other characters that way as well. While yes, it is a simple thing, I appreciate how they took something that could have been a lot more tedious and boring, but found a way to spice it up and keep rewarding the player. This makes my Lizardman brain very happy. To briefly touch on what the story mode is about, basically it's up to you to seek out Soul Edge and put a stop to it once and for all. Your journey will take you through about 10 different chapters with some sub-chapters thrown in there as well. When you make your way to the final chapter after suffering through many dungeons, you face Inferno, a being incarnated from Soul Edge itself. After Inferno is defeated, we get an end credit scene that says that even though we beat Soul Edge, we probably did nothing and the cycle is doomed to repeat again. So that's just fun. But if the main story wasn't enough for you and you're still feeling hungry, for added gameplay, after you complete the story for the first time, every mission you played before now has a side B mission. So if you wanted an even more challenging experience and to go for a completionist run, there's always that. Okay, so you've seen my gameplay, but let's talk about how you actually play this game. So look, I'm just gonna come right out of the gate and say it, I'm not an expert in fighting games by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, can you honestly say you're surprised? You're talking to the guy that reviewed the bad Frogger game. I can tell you how some of the basic moves work and some of the mechanics, but don't expect any advanced maneuvers from me. What, you expect me to read this whole list and memorize it? Listen, I haven't needed algebra this far in my adult life, and this game isn't gonna make me start now. So off the bat, I will say, the controls for this game always confuse my child brain. The primary buttons you'll be using to attack are A, Y, and X, with the B button also blocking. But the way the attacks are assigned and labeled in this game are just weird. So A is your horizontal attack, and that's assigned to the A button. Fair enough, that's easy. But then vertical attacking in this game's language is labeled as a B, but it's assigned to the Y button. Then there's kicking, which is labeled as a K, but it's assigned to the X button. This was probably an already established thing in these games, but holy hell did I get my combos mixed up because of this. I'm about to just start labeling my controllers like this. Ah, there. Just as Namco intended. There's also a mechanic you can trigger in this game called a soul charge, where when you press the Z button, your character powers up and can do a much more aggressive and powerful version of a regular move. My favorite maneuvers, and the ones I used often, have to be the throw moves. Mostly because when I was a kid I was cheap and that's the only way I won matches. Don't be like me. These moves are easily executed by pressing both A and B at the same time, or B and Y. Otherwise though, much like other fighting games at the time, the end goal is the same, win by knockout or ring out. Can you guess which one I did more? One of my favorite things about this game, just beyond the characters, has to be the music and set pieces. The soundtrack to this game is fully orchestrated and has this very whimsical yet serious feeling to it that just prepares you for the fight ahead. From the character select screen to the stages themselves, they're all very well composed. The settings themselves are beautiful and not what I would expect for a fighting game. There's things like windmills, caves, a cliffside, a decrepit temple. I honestly have a hard time picking a stage in this game sometimes. I think this game by far has one of the best soundtracks in the Gamecube's library. Some of my favorite tracks in this game include Guided by Wind, Raise Thy Sword, and Confrontation. But honestly, any of them are great, you can't go wrong. Some other fun extra modes this game contains as small goodies are things like the Exhibition Theater, where you can see a short animated clip of your character fighting with their weapon, pretty cool. Or there's character profiles, where you can preview different characters and go through all their different voice lines. Ah yes, finally, a way to hear all of my favorite Link quotes. But beyond those, if you want a bit more story and are interested in the lore of these characters, I highly recommend trying out the arcade mode. As the name implies, it's definitely arcade mode. You pick a character and fight several characters in a series of rounds, but where the twist comes in with this is in the last fight of this mode, you have what's called a destined battle. Each character you pick has a predetermined final fight with a specific character that somehow relates to their character arc. After your destined battle, you end up having a one-on-one fight with Inferno, and after beating him, Soul Edge appears. Each character does something different upon finding Soul Edge, and they get their own personalized bit of story that tells how their tale ends. Some of the characters get the happy ending they long sought for, but also some end in tragedy and sadness. Take Nightmare for example. In his story, he's been placed under the curse of Soul Edge, but after defeating Inferno, he regains the humanity he once lost and remembers who he was before he became this horrifying creature. He then spends his time wandering the lands until he finds a bottomless hole in the earth. He chooses to cast Soul Edge down into the earth and remains there to guard it for all eternity to ensure no one else falls under its influence. I really like that this game provides some way to peer more into these characters' stories, so I appreciate that they added something like this. If you want a way to get more invested into these characters, I highly recommend trying this mode. And with that, that was my review of Soul Calibur 2. There's honestly a lot of things to love about this game, and I think if anything, going back and taking a retrospective look at it after all these years prove that. In my honest opinion, I think after all these years since 2002, the game holds up really well. The characters are well made and interesting, the plot is really cool for a fighting game, and just everything else about the game is just fantastic in my opinion. So if you're someone who's big into fighting games and wants something new to scratch that fighting itch, or maybe you just appreciate games with a colorful cast of characters, I can't recommend this game enough. It's not too often that this game comes up in conversation when talking about the Gamecube, and I really feel like this game is worthy of your time. In fact, I think it's one of the best games the Gamecube has going for it. You know, it's funny. I never played too much beyond this game. I wonder what the most recent one is like. The internet was a mistake. Hey everyone, it's me, the guy you just watched in the video, talking about the video game. I just wanted to take this moment in the end credits just to say thank you guys so much for watching. I've been trying to upload a lot more often, as opposed to, once every 3 months. I'm trying to make this a weekly thing if I can help it. Trying to kind of schedule that out between my actual full-time job and, making content, but I'm going to try to make this weekly thing, but thank you guys so much for your support over the last month. I really appreciate it. Some other news I have to share with you guys is that I recently just opened up my very first Patreon account for this channel. There's only currently 2 tiers in the Patreon, and it's probably going to stay that way just because I'm not really strapped for money, but I wanted to kind of create something where if you guys support me, I can provide some extra content back to you guys as thanks. The first tier in the Patreon is known as the Shewy Squad member tier. It's $1 a month and it gets you benefits such as access to our Discord, access to videos a day early, your name in the end credits of the video, and influence on what I review next. You guys can kind of help decide what I play next for the next review. And for the second and final tier is the Dad tier for $3 a month. Don't ask me why I named it that, it just kind of came to mind. I didn't know what else to really call it. But for $3 a month in the Dad tier, you get all the previous benefits of the first tier, including occasional video editing tips from yours truly. I'll probably just upload some things I do to make my video editing process a little bit easier that might help you, and also behind the scenes footage such as bloopers, outtakes, and maybe some miscellaneous videos I'll throw in there. And that's really all I had to say for this. Thank you guys so much once again for your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.